I'm excited about this episode of the Elite Recruiter Podcast because getting your health right is so important. I have my special guest, Jay Veniard, with me, who is the CEO of Ventech, but we're going to talk about his health journey. But before we do that, he's a special guest for the show because back when I had an idea for a recession-proof leadership podcast that actually was the MVP of the Elite Recruiter Podcast, Jay is just like, hey, I'll join you and talk about what happened, the lessons I learned from the different recessions. So that was like way back when. Jay, first of all, thank you for taking a chance on being a podcast guest way back when. We're now, I think we're averaging like 7,000 monthly downloads, which is kind of cool. But you went through an incredible health journey. And one of the reasons why I want to talk about that is because I've seen it through friends. We have recently, I don't know the full on health situation, but we recently lost a friend in the recruiting space. The older you get, you need to get your health in gear. It is so important for your recruiting career. So Jay, welcome back to the podcast.
Yeah, man. Thanks for having me. It's been a long time coming. You know, it's funny when you say I was the first one on there and now you've got 7,000 downloads. When I did the podcast, you might have had 7 downloads. So that's pretty cool. So I'm glad to see the progression that you've made on the podcast. I listened to almost every one of the episodes and I love it. You're doing a great thing. And I like the idea and the timing right now of talking about health, not only in your life, but also I'm going to talk a little bit about how it really improved my recruiting business as a whole.
So let's take a step back a few years. What did your health look like and what did your recruiting career look like?
Yeah, so I'm gonna rewind back to late 90s, early 2000s. A lot of people that already know me know that I was a professional baseball player. I would consider myself in fairly elite shape back then. Um, when I was playing baseball back in the day, I was playing baseball at about 225, 230-ish pounds. Now, those were the days too where they didn't have all the science of nutrition behind being a professional athlete. So I didn't have that benefit. So I was still eating a full large pizza and all the fast food you could think about after the games and things like that. But as we fast forward now to what we know about health, I got to a point after I retired from baseball where, my weight really kind of got up and has for about the last 10 to 15 years fluctuated between 260 to 270 pounds. I mean, I'm a big guy, I'm 6'4", but still 260, 270 pounds. I was fat. Um, I look back at pictures right now, and even my kids are doing it now, and they're like, wow, look at this picture, Dad. Like, I can't believe how big you were. And I always say to them, let's just call it what it is. I was fat, okay? And so I never really thought a whole lot about it because I was still active. I was still working out here and there. I was still playing adult league ice hockey. So I thought I was good. Um, but I got to a point where I was realizing that I was really struggling when I was playing adult ice hockey. Like literally, there were a lot of times where I would come off after a 1 minute shift and think I was going to have a heart attack. I mean, I watch my heart rate on my Apple Watch when I play, and we're talking about heart rates that were getting up 185 ish. And what's crazy is now that I've gone from 265 when I started, and this was a year ago in March, I am now down to 220. And now when I go out and play hockey, the highest my heart rate gets is about 170. So you're talking about a big reduction in just heart rate in physical activity. And so what I noticed, especially for how it relates to recruiting, is 2021, we had a record year. I started my health journey. And I hate calling it a health journey because that's what multi-level marketers always try to sell people on, is a health journey. What I did was not multi-level marketing. What I did was not a restrictive diet. I mean, I actually came out of the keto diet and into this program because the guy that I was working with said the keto diet is one of the worst diets that you can do. And I was like, well, dang, I lost 30 pounds on the keto diet before. And he was
Well,
like, no, it's bad.
take a pause real quick. Like after 10, 12, 15 years, was there something that just all of a sudden just hit you like, I need to do something?
Yeah, I mean, it was everything. I mean, most recruiters are type A's. I was a professional athlete, so I'm definitely type A. If I'm not at a high level, I'm a failure. And so what I was realizing is that in everything I was doing, I wasn't at a high level. I wasn't performing my job and my business at a high level. I wasn't present with my family at a high level. I definitely was not portraying a healthy, sexy body for my wife. So, that was something that I thought about too. And this. I've got 5 kids. I've got 5 girls, and I really wanted to make sure that I would be there for them for however long it is, but I just wanted to make sure that I was going to be there for them. And, you know, I've been pretty fortunate, like, no major health issues in my family, but I just saw it as like, you know what? Being fat is the worst thing that you can do for your health, for your wealth, for your business. Um, I would even go as far as to say, and this is going to ruffle some feathers, that when you're fat and out of shape, that is all on you for being selfish. There is no reason why anyone should be fat. There's no such thing as being big boned. There's no such thing as, oh, my metabolism is this, that, and the other. At the end of the day, what it boils down to is you are putting way too many calories into your pie hole and you're not exercising enough. And the thing about it is, what I really realized is that until I started tracking my food, which I hate doing, it is a pain in the ass. But for the last year, I've been using MyFitnessPal. It's amazing to think that when you're eyeballing food and thinking that 3 ounces of, let's say, rice is the one that I had the biggest epitome on. 3 ounces of rice, I thought was like a bowl, like a small bowl, like you get at a Chinese restaurant. It's literally like the size of a $50. And so those were the things that I really learned as far as, what I needed to do to just be a better person, because my energy level is 70,000 times higher. I believe it's the reason why, after a record year in 2021, we actually beat our record by 30% in 2022. And I think that's because of my energy level. I wasn't having that late afternoon crash. Um, Everything was firing in the brain. And I just think that that's the key. I just think being healthy is the key.
And it's super important. The older we get, I remember my early recruiting days, agency recruiter, where I swear to God, I think one night living in Orlando, drove down to Miami, partied in Miami, made it back to my desk. I actually pulled in the parking lot at 7 a.m. and went straight to work.
Yeah,
Now,
those are
if
the
you're listening to this,
days.
if you're listening to this podcast and you're like in your early 20s, have your fun, but the foundational importance of setting up your health really happens in your 20s, your 30s, and whatever you do now has an impact for the next 20 years. It's
Oh,
and I wanted to bring you on this podcast because for me, I think it was maybe a few years ago, I had a wake up call too. Like my energy level sucked, just didn't have I hit about 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon and I was just dead. So I started doing a 5 mile loop 5 times a week. That started helping me out a lot. I personally have a coach, Beth, who's amazing. She just puts in training peaks, what I need to do. And I just go do that. And that's my workouts for the week. But everybody that I know, including you, Jay, everybody that I know that's a high performer in whatever field they're in, they have decided to make their health important. And like I said earlier in the podcast, like we've had an incredible wake up call. And really just want to share the message of like, hey, whatever your situation is, now's the time to get healthy.
Yeah, I agree. There's no excuse. And me and you have been searching for a reason to jump on a podcast, and when the unfortunate event happened with someone that we all know and like in the industry, that was me saying, all right, hey Ben, this is what we're going to talk about, because I can relate it to recruiting and life in general. Um and and so one thing that you kind of pointed out is that six pack abs are the new flex for the top CEOs and high achievers in the world. I mean, look, I am 48 years old. When I was playing professional baseball, I never had abs. I was in good shape. I was lean, never had abs. Um, One of the things that my coach, that I've been with for a year, his whole program is work out 3 days a week for an hour or less, walk 10,000 steps a day, and we're going to get to this in a second. And eat, don't go over the calories I set for you, and significantly increase your protein intake. And what that's done for me at 48 is I've actually got two visible abs right now, almost four. And the deal with my wife is this. So I'm going to be 49 in August. And at the time of this recording, we're at the beginning of May. And the deal is that if on my 49th birthday on August 16th, if I have six visible abs that day, we're booking an all inclusive vacation for my 50th birthday, and we're going to invite whoever wants to come. So if anyone's listening to this podcast and you want to come celebrate my 50th birthday, then let's go. The only caveat that I'm going to throw out there is I am not going to be wearing a shirt at all on that vacation, because I'm going to have abs. And the thing about it is I never had a desire to have abs. I still, even it's one of my limiting beliefs right now, where I'm kind of like, would having abs be cool? Yes, but do I really care? No, I really don't. But now it's a challenge for me, because it's been the hardest thing to do. I mean, I lost 40 pounds in probably 6 months. And for the last 6 months, I've probably only dropped 5 more pounds off of that. But the transition of my body, I mean, I am bigger and have more muscle definition now at 48 years old than I did when I was a professional athlete. So it just goes to show that you can't use any excuse. You're not too old. You're not limited on time. There at the very least, I will tell everyone this: the number one thing that I think is a driver to the success in my 1 year health journey is walking. So one of the foundations of my trainer's program is you have to walk 10 to 15,000 steps a day. And I know everyone right now is like, oh, I don't have time to do that. Neither did I. But guess what? I now have a stand-up desk with a treadmill underneath it in my office. And what I do, and it's getting ready to change because it's starting to get really hot in Arizona, is I always try to do my walks outdoors. When I can't do it, I do it at my desk. And I'm going to be doing that a lot lately. And then I get at least an hour of walking in during my workday, and it's spaced out in 15 to 20-minute blocks. Because I think you'll agree, especially in our business, if you're not getting up out of your seat and moving every hour or so, it is just going to get ridiculously monotonous. So you got to do that. And then at the end of the night, or at the end of the day, I'm usually at like 8,000 steps. And then my wife and I go out, walk the dogs, and then I get another probably 3,000, 4,000. And there I am every day, 12 to 13,000 steps a day. I would tell everyone listening to this podcast that even if you don't change your diet, if you walk 10,000 or more steps a day, you will see a significant increase in the way you feel. You're probably not going to see a whole lot of difference in your body, because at the end of the day, the change in your body and losing weight has everything to do with the food that you put in your mouth, and really how much food you put in your mouth. So, like, I'll tell everyone here, it doesn't have to be my coach because he's expensive, but he gets results. But find someone, and I would specifically start with someone who's a certified nutritionist that can tell you exactly what the calories are that you should be intaking, and then what your protein, carb, and fat ratios are. Because the one thing that really shocked me is I always thought carbs were bad. Carbs are actually really good. I went from a keto diet where I was taking between 30 to 50 grams of carbs per day to my new program, I'm taking in 150 grams of carbs per day. And I feel the best that I've ever felt in probably 20 years.
Well, I want to pause right there. And you have a coach, I have a coach. One of the benefits that I believe in having a coach is if you were trying to put all this together yourself on top of your recruiting business, on top of planning like your food and this and that, do you think you'd still be as successful?
No, 100% no. Listen, I'm an ex-professional athlete. I know about nutrition. I definitely know how to work out, and I know how to get in shape, and I know how to get in shape quick. Okay, so why was I fat for the 15-ish years since I stopped playing baseball, even though I was still working out, I was still playing beer league ice hockey, I was still what I thought dieting, doing keto diet, doing the MLM shake deals, isogenics and Herbalife and all the I've done every diet you can think of. And the thing about it is all the diets that are commercially marketed, they're all bullshit. They don't work. At the end of the day, if you set yourself on a specific when I started dieting, I went from being on what I thought was 1,600 calories on keto to my guy bumping me up to 2,000 calories for a weight cut. And I was like, dude, are you sure? He was like, you just trust me. So I got to eat more. There was no real restriction on the type of food that I was going to eat. Obviously, you have to eat healthy food, fish, chicken, meat, high protein. That was the one thing. I was only taking in about 100 grams a day, if that, of protein. He was like, dude, that's your number one problem. I got bumped up to 200 grams of protein a day. There's going to be people listening that are like, there's no way I could do that. There were a lot of protein shake supplementations to get me up to that level. But again, I'm a big guy, so not everyone's going to be at that level. But there's absolutely no, everything that I've been taught flipped everything that I was taught as a professional athlete on its head. So, what people have to realize is that whatever you're researching on the internet, you can find anything that you want to find to suit what you want. But at the end of the day, it is really a very easy science. Calories in, calories out. Don't go over your calories. Eat more protein. Meat is not bad. Actually, there's a lot of science and data behind saying that meat is actually really good for you, but we won't go into that. But I would never have been able to figure this out on my own. As a matter of fact, if I didn't find my trainer, I would still probably be on the keto diet, thinking I was doing okay and, you know, being okay with going and eating 12 chicken wings a couple times a week because they were high in protein and low in carbs. And that was kind of the thing. But yeah, man, that was the biggest deal. Not enough people invest in a coach. And the thing about it is you and I have talked about this before. There are a lot of bullshit coaches out there that have never done anything. And you really have to be smart about vetting those people out. Um, I searched for at least 6 months for a health coach, health and fitness and nutrition. It was all in one. There were several I was looking at, and the one guy that I thought I liked, I sat on him for about 3 months, just watching his content, watching his videos, watching his testimonials. And the one thing that I found, his one thing was he specializes in business owners who have a busy schedule and claim they can't work, they don't have time to work out. He claims 3 days a week of weightlifting for an hour or less. And I can tell you right now, every single one of my workouts that he plans for me that has been for the last year has been an hour or less. So you can come up with all the excuses you want. And that was the reason why I was like skeptical about him. I'm like, there is no way 3 days a week is going to do it. I'm more jacked now than I was when I was a professional athlete. Just as simple as that.
Well, there's two questions I want to ask. The first question that you have is talking about like tracking. And I know in recruiting, we follow KPIs, we track our numbers, we track that kind of stuff. I just had a crazy like self experiment earlier this month where I actually tracked every single minute of my waking day for a week. And just to kind of like really analyze what I was doing, which is that's a whole another topic I could probably go on for a while.
Yeah.
What you think you're doing versus what you're actually doing. But, when it comes to, your diet, like tracking is also important. I want to ask you about that. But before I do, like, my God, my buddy, that food app that you were talking about, when I started tracking my wine consumption, whew.
Yeah.
So why is tracking, like, if you want to make a change, why is tracking your food important?
Because you know exactly what you're putting in your mouth. And, the other thing that really sucks about tracking your food is you have to weigh and measure it. And it's a pain in the ass. And I don't like it. And I've been doing it for a year and I still don't like it. And I'm going to tell anyone who's serious about losing weight and getting healthy, you're not going to like tracking your food. It's a pain in the ass. And especially when you go out to eat, you're going to be like, oh man, what is in this? But you have to try to be perfect, but you don't have to let perfection keep you away from doing it. I try to get close. And so when you start tracking, you realize that glass of wine is 120 calories. That 96 calorie Miller Lite, you drank 5 of them. It's 500 calories. My allotment for the day was 2,000 calories. So if I drank 5 Miller Lights, which I didn't because my trainer says try to eliminate alcohol as much as possible. He knows it's not something that most people are going to eliminate 100%. But I was like, man, I've got 2,000 calories. I'm not spending 500 on them on, 5 Miller Lights. So, that's one thing that really hit home with me is really seeing how much all of those empty calories add up. If you think about it too, I went from, I love coffee. I drink probably two big coffees a day. I'm now drinking black coffee. And if I get a coffee that's a little bit on the bitter side, I will put a tiny little bit of 2% milk in there. Because when you start adding the creams, when I was on keto, I was pouring heavy cream. I was doing kind of the bulletproof coffee, heavy cream with ghee in it. My coffees were like 400 calories. I don't do that anymore because I've realized that all of those things that don't satiate me, I try to eliminate because I want to spend all of my calories on the things that are like super delicious. And when you do that, you can afford to have a cookie or two at the end of the night. If you've got 100 calories to give at the end of the night and you've hit your protein goals, because again, protein's the most important. But if you've got those extra 100 calories, you can have a cookie or two. It's okay. But if you're not tracking it, you're going to eat that cookie and start feeling super guilty because you're like, man, I'm supposed to be on this diet and I just ate 2 cookies. Oh my God, that was so stupid. You start beating yourself up. I don't beat myself up anymore. I'll roll in because trust me, with all the girls in my family, we have tons of sweets all the time. The other day I came home, I was like, oh, there's one brownie left. Whoop, ate it, tracked it, and I was like, all right, 120 calories, but that was delicious. And so I just had to subtract the 120 calories out of my dinner. So it's really cool to track, but it is a big pain in the ass because the tracking is what holds you accountable.
So before we move on to some recruiting questions, in a major transformation journey like that, I'm sure there are days that you just want to say, fuck it. How did you push through those days and keep on going?
So repeat the question because I think that your screen was a little bit frozen.
Okay. So in a transformation journey like that, where you're making all these big improvements, I'm sure there are days that you just want to say, absolutely fuck it, I'm done. How did you get through those?
So number one is, and this is a big cliche with everything, but you have to go back to your why. And my why was I want to live till I'm at least 80 because I got a lot of kids that I want to see grow up and, have grandkids and all that stuff. So that's the number one thing. And what's interesting is the secondary reason had really nothing to do with me either. I just wanted to be, and some people listening or watching this, they're going to think I'm so egotistical. I just wanted to be sexy for my wife, you know. I mean, after being together for 13 years, things kind of start, you know, it's just you've been together for so long, it just is what it is. And so I knew when I would start looking at pictures, because she's in really good shape, and so, she's thin and all that stuff. I would look at the picture and I would be like, am I the guy that people like see us in public and they're like, how did that fat ass get her? And so really that was one of the things that really kind of changed it. So that helped push me through. But I have to tell you, Ben, my trainer, and I'm going to put a shameless plug out him. His name is Maro Stara, and he is the biggest ball busting accountability partner that you could ever imagine. Not, I will tell anyone that's even going to think about reaching out to him, if you're a snowflake and you can't handle extreme accountability, don't hire him because he will say things to you that will piss you off. He says things that piss me off, but I'm just like, oh, you're 100% right, and I'm glad that you said it to me like that instead of trying to just be like, oh, maybe you should try doing this. He's just like, you got to do it. I was going to cuss right there, but I don't think this is a podcast where we're going to cuss a lot. But he'll use some colorful language. Let's just put it that way. But that's what that's what I need. That's the type of person that I need to hold me accountable. That's going to be tough, and he's on me every day. If I don't log my weight, he's on me, and I'm a year in with him. He knows when I go up to our house up north, he knows that I like to go up there and have fun and drink with all of our friends up there. He will hit me up almost every Friday now because he knows that's the weather's getting to that point. He'll be like, do you have a plan for this weekend? I know you're going up north. Do you have a plan for this weekend? Because I know you're not going to eat as good as you should, and I know you're going to drink more than you normally do. What's the plan? And if I don't tell him a plan, he's going to be like, oh, well, you must want to go back to being the fat J. And that phrase right there, going back to being the fat J, is the one that punches me in the face every single time. I hate it. It pisses me off, but it's 100% true.
And you've hit another point. Tracking everything that you do is important if you want to make a change. Also, have an accountability partner. Sterling Hawkins, who's the author we had on this podcast recently, and Brett Eaton, another high performance coach. Those are some of the things that they talk about. If you want to be successful in anything, having that person to be an accountability partner to help you go through that journey is super important. It's so much harder to go by yourself.
I couldn't agree with you more. This is going to be another thing that ruffles a lot of feathers. Recruiters are big cheapskates and don't want to invest in anything. And there's
True.
so many recruiting groups out there where I see the questions that come in. And look, I know there's a lot of newbies out there, but look, get a coach, man. Get someone that's been there. And again, especially in our industry, you really have to vet the people. I mean, I, I'm going to throw it out there. I wish some people that were looking for coaches would start asking the recruiting coaches to see their W-2s to see if they're legit, like a successful recruiter. Like, show me something that tells me you're a good recruiter, because I'm seeing people coming in as coaches that have like a year and a half, 2 years of experience in the industry, and I'm like, how do you even know anything about the industry? The number one red flag, we're going to go down a recruiting rabbit hole here now. The number one red flag for a coach in the recruiting industry is when they tell you you don't have to pick up the phone. Now I get it. The days of pounding out 100 calls a day are gone, but the people who are telling you you don't have to make a cold call are full of shit. And I will also say that the people that are with me right now, they're like, "Oh, well, everything we're going to do on the front end is going to create a warm call." I get that. Like, I get it, and I agree. But you still have to make cold calls. That's just a part of the business. It's one of the three or four frameworks that you and I have talked about a lot that you have to do. You have to do cold calls, you have to do warm calls, you have to send emails, you have to send LinkedIn DMs, and whatever else, text messages. Four or five things that you have to do. If you take any one of those out, or if you're trying to listen to a coach that's telling you you don't have to do any one of those, you're wasting your money. You should just go in your backyard and set that money on fire because they're giving you bad advice. Because the minute you take away one of those foundational elements of being a recruiter, you're taking away one potential revenue stream. I mean, the big thing going on right now on one of the headhunter communities is about NPCs. The fact that someone says
That's been fun.
NPC marketing is useless is the most ridiculous thing that I've ever heard. I could tell you right now, almost 80% of the placements that I've made in my 19-year career have been from NPC marketing, and I have never once, well, let me rephrase that. In 19 years, I've probably gotten two, maybe three job orders from a general marketing email to a high level executive saying, "Hey, here's what we do. Here's how we can help you. Here's how we save you money," or whatever it is. It doesn't work. It just doesn't work. So, anyway, I kind of went down a rabbit hole there.
All good, all good.
But
Because
it
I
was
was,
it had to do with the coaches out there, the coaching.
yeah, and that's a perfect way for us to like roll into the recruiting questions. So, like, for those that don't know you, Jay, how did you even end up in the recruiting space?
Luck. So, as we mentioned before, ex-professional baseball player. I was a pitcher. I blew my shoulder out. Was fortunate enough to have the Toronto Blue Jays pay for me to finish college. When I got done with college, I was just working really as kind of a phone person, answering phones and doing some sales for my brother. And then I moved to Phoenix, and I interviewed for, so leading up to this, and we're talking, I'm 27 years old. I had never in my life interviewed for a job. 27, and I'd never interviewed for a real job. So I wanted to be a pharmaceutical sales rep because my sister-in-law was one. She was making a lot of money. It's what I wanted to do. And I had an interview. It was a disaster. I left that interview saying, there is no freaking way I'm getting this job. That was horrible. So I was feeling bad about myself. Then, like a day later, I get this interview at this recruiting firm. And within like 15 minutes, the office manager's like, "Yeah, I mean, you got the job. I mean, you have to talk to the owner real quick, but can you do that right now?" I was like, man, I knew I was a good interviewer. I knew, like, yeah, I knew I was good. Still, you got to remember, professional athlete ego. I thought I was the stuff on everything. So I go and I talk to the owner. He's like, "Yeah, when can you start?" I'm like, "I'll start on Monday." He's like, "Perfect." So I'm leaving there, chest puffed up. I'm like, man, I knew I was a good interviewer. I can't believe I locked this job down. Get into the job. They tell me what to do. And back then, we're talking 2004. It was make the only KPI was make 100 or more calls a day. That's all they told me. Here's your script, which by the way was an MPC script. And I used the same MPC script for 2 straight years and was rookie of the year and top biller in my first 2 years. So it works. But then after my first year and I saw the merry-go-round of people coming through our office, I was like, holy crap, they hire everyone. And they literally hired everyone. Because the other thing too, Ben, that was back in the day when recruiters were coming in 100% commission. So, they would
Nothing to
pay
lose
you
for
a
them.
1 month training salary of, like, back then I think it was like 2 grand or whatever, and then 100% commission. So literally they hired everyone. And then I saw the people the and I know you've probably seen this at Aerotech, the person that comes in and they leave for lunch and they never come back. You're like,
Yeah, of course.
where did they go? So yeah, so I got into it by luck. Super
What's
successful
wrong
my
with me? I'm
first
still here.
right? So super successful my first 2 years, rookie of the year, top biller, went into my third year, was on pace again to be top biller again, and then the ego kicked in. Why am I giving away 50% of my commissions? So I started my own company. This was in 2007. We were recruiting in residential construction. Absolutely crushed it for the first 9 months. I mean, crushed it. We were getting $40,000 and $50,000 fees regularly. I mean, I had outbilled my previous company within the first 4 months, and I was like, "Oh my god, I'm going to be rich. This is it." Boom, boom, boom. Then the housing market crashed, and I got to a point, and it's never happened since, where I was calling these construction companies, and it was residential home building, and they were laughing at me. They were like, "Do you have any idea what's going on in the market?" And of course, I was like, "Oh yeah, no, I know everyone's getting laid off." I'm like, "But we're gonna go find you and get you the person that hasn't been laid off." They're like, "Listen, man, a lot of the people that have gotten laid off are really good and we can get them ourselves, so we don't need you." Anyway, long story short, that company went out of business. And then I got out of recruiting for a little while, kind of went on my entrepreneurial journey, started 4 or 5 different companies with my wife. Some of them are still around, most of them didn't work out. But then I got back into recruiting in 2015, I believe it was, and I took on a head of recruiting for a company. So glorified internal recruiter. I was recruiter number one, but I was the head of recruiting. The most boring job that I ever had, was not a challenge at all. I was like, wait a second, all I have to do is fill these jobs. And they didn't want us to headhunt. They were like, yeah, just find good candidates on from the job boards. And I was like, okay, super easy. And then I went back to work for my old company where I was top biller. That was 2016. They were still operating like it was 2004. I didn't like that. So my wife was like, start your own company. I was like, no, I don't want to do it. She's like, start your own company. I was like, I don't want to do it. She was like, you love recruiting. You're always talking about, go start your damn company. I was like, fine. I was like, but I don't want to do it. Almost 6 years later, here we are.
It's awesome to have somebody like that in your corner.
Sometimes.
That's
Listen, I would be lying to you if I said right now, I really wish I wasn't in recruiting, because our business is down considerably. Now, again, we're coming off a record year. I did see this coming, so it didn't surprise me. But, it's one of those seasons in recruiting where you're just like, this job sucks. It is stressful. And you know what? One thing I want to kind of go back to is, because our job as recruiters is so stressful, you have to be in top physical shape. If you're in top physical shape, you're going to be able to go through the stress and the ups and downs of this business so much easier. Because at the end of the day, the number one killer is stress. Stress is the thing that creates the most havoc in your body. And if you're in top physical shape, you're still going to get stressed, but your body's going to be able to overcome it a lot easier than if you're not in shape.
definitely. So, going to move over to some what I call quick fire questions, ones I ask everybody. A recruiter's now getting started in our industry in 2023. What advice would you give to them to be successful?
Find an old school trainer that can help you set the foundation of your business the right way. Recruiting has been done the same way since, I don't even know when recruiting started, 60s, 70s, 50s, who knows? And what I'm getting at is the phone. You have to pick up the phone in this business to be successful. Can you be successful without picking up the phone and making cold calls? I say moderately. I would love some people to challenge me with their W-2s and tell me that they never cold call people, because I just don't believe that you can be a high level, half a million, $1 million biller without making phone calls. But I think it's the foundation. You have to do things the right way. You have to be able to know how to use the phone. You have to know how to talk to HR and upper level management. You have to know how to structure, a marketing email, because if you're going in new as a 360 or a new business owner, you have to be able to do business development. And if you can't do business development, then you shouldn't be starting your own firm. You should be going to work for someone else. And then if you're going in as a recruiter, you cannot influence anyone in an email, LinkedIn DM, or text message. So that's again why it becomes really critical to be really good on the phone. You can get someone to a certain point in the deal process on the recruiting side, maybe without talking to them, but you can't influence that person. And if you're not influencing decisions, then you're going to have a lot of people turn jobs down at the last minute. You're going to have counter offers. You're going to have it all. And at the end of the day, why would you not want to be able to hear the person's tone of voice on the call? Because you and I both know, Ben, you get someone on the phone and you can tell by their tone of voice if they think that they are the bee's knees, and you're like, uh-oh, this person right here this is a red flag. Like, but if you never got on the phone with them, you don't know. So that would be my advice.
I just had that, I think this week. I was like, found the perfect person, got them on the phone, realized that they had like 5 or 6 red flags in our conversation, and they would somehow blow it up with my client.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, 100%. Or even to dovetail off that, what if you've been talking through email and LinkedIn DMs, and I'll just use my example. I'm looking for a salesperson, and I know that my director of sales wants high energy, and I finally get on the phone with this person after like 4 days of digital communication, and it's a dud flatline. I'm like, oh my God, my hiring manager would have killed me if I would have put this person in. So again, you got to get on the phone. I don't care what anyone tells you. So that's what I
So,
would suggest.
same question for experienced recruiters. How would what would you say to them to keep on being successful or to chase success in 2023?
Um, this is going to resonate with you because I know both of us are big fans of coaching. Find someone in the business that has done what you're trying to do. If you want to be $1 million biller, go find $1 million biller, and don't be a cheapskate and ask if you can pick their brain. Pay them. It is going to be so worth it to pay them. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that are giving free advice, and yeah, you might get lucky, and I mean, Rich Rosen gives away tons of free advice, but you know what, at the end of the day, if you really wanted to be mentored by Rich Rosen, give him a call and offer to pay him, and he would probably be happy to do it. There's a lot of other people that would probably want to do it too, but I think if you're an established recruiter, you still have a lot to learn. There's things that you have stopped doing over time because you've gotten comfortable and complacent. But if you want to take it to the next level, you have to find that person who's going to basically clear all the landmines for you on that quest to go from maybe a half a million to a million or wherever it is you want to go. I mean, total example here, Ben. We're getting into contract recruiting. I've never done contract recruiting in my whole life. I don't even really know how to do it, how to sell it. I've had probably 10 conversations with people who do contracting just to get an idea. And I make sure that I talk to people who are established, not people who dabble in contract recruiting, because there's a lot of dabblers in our business, and I'm just trying to soak up information. And you know what? I would be more than happy to pay any of them for an hour of their time.
Awesome. All right, next question. Has there been a book that's had a huge impact on your career?
There's been a lot of books that have had a huge impact on my career because I when I came up in recruiting, it was the boiler room deal where they basically gave you a script and said make 100 calls a day. I had never gotten 1 ounce of sales training ever. So I would say probably about 2010 is when I started just consuming as many sales books, different kind of sales books, recruiting, regular sales, whatever it is. Got into a lot of professional development. But the one book right now that I really like, and I think it's really pertinent to recruiting, is the book called The Power of One More by Ed Milet. Fantastic book, and it's an easy read. So I would suggest anyone that's in our business definitely read that book.
It's a good book. I actually have it on my audio book, and I listened to it when I was out for a run.
Yeah.
So, do you have any favorite recruiting tech tools at the moment?
Um, the I'm using a new one that I'm really liking. It's I'm still in the learning process. It's basically an email marketing tool called Upticks. Um, Very robust platform, based here in the US. Fantastic customer support from the two founders. Um, they are still nimble enough to make changes based on customer recommendations. It's still got some few things that they need to work out, which is because they're a new company. But the one thing I love is they are there to help you basically set up the whole system. And with today's new way to do email marketing where you're buying multiple domains with multiple email boxes, they set that all up for me. And now I went from being able to send maybe 100 emails a day from my own domain to now I can send thousands of emails because I've got like 10 different email email addresses on, 4 or 5 different domains, and they will help you warm up those email addresses so they don't, appear as spam. So I really like that. That's actually been really effective. And I also think too, if for the sales side, it can function as a really good CRM too, because you can set up, hooks, and if this happens then do that. It can move things around. So I'm really liking it right now.
Awesome. How do you think artificial intelligence is going to impact recruiting?
uh that's a that's such a good question because I'm trying to not use artificial intelligence. I just think that, man, we could go on for hours about this. It's another rabbit hole that I just feel like the more that we use artificial intelligence, the more that it allows someone with zero experience to come into the business and at least appear to be somewhat seasoned. And I don't like that. But I will say in the last month or so, I have kind of told my marketing team, hey, you guys need to start looking at Chat GPT because I really think it can help us with some of our emails and things like that. And talking about Upticks as one of my favorite technology tools, they now have an integrated AI feature that they offer that will actually use the AI. I think it's Chat GPT to help you write your emails and make sure that they're good. But um, yeah, it's gonna be interesting to see what AI does because everyone thinks it's gonna take over recruiting. I'm like, oh yeah, like Career Builder, Monster, LinkedIn, like all of those. Is it really gonna take over? Because last time I checked, Chat GPT, as of right now, can't get on the phone. But maybe down the road they will be able to get on the phone. Who knows? It'll be interesting to see how it pans out.
If you want to know something wild, I was trying to make a reservation somewhere, and Google actually called the restaurant and twice to make the reservation. They called like until they actually got a hold of somebody. Then it was an automated voice, locked in the reservation, and sent me a text message.
I'm not gonna lie,
So
I've used that
maybe
before. That's pretty cool. That's pretty cool.
I'll say this. I think AI will replace a lot of recruiters. It's the post and pray recruiters that it will replace.
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
But all right, one of my favorite questions, Jay. With everything that you've learned in your experience in recruiting, if you can go back and talk to little Jay, fresh out of being a major league baseball player, getting started in his recruiting career, what would you tell yourself?
Oh man, so many things. I mean, the I think for me, well, number one of the main things that derailed my baseball career is I was lazy and a jerk. Um, I had no filter. And so what happened in my recruiting career is, and it still happens every once in a while, but not nearly as much, ego comes in. I'm really good. Record year 2021, another record year 2022. Oh shit, the economy's not doing good. What now? Okay, well, you look at your number of placements and you're down almost 70% in the first, well, let's just say the first quarter. You humbled. So I would just say, try to be, I would be more even keeled. I would let the ego go and I would work harder because no matter what season you're in recruiting with record years, and I told my recruiters this all the time in 2021, 2022, and 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 it's self-serving coming from an owner of a company because it's like work harder, like every, but I would tell my people, listen, you have to work 3 to 5 times harder now because this is one of the best recruiting economies that I've ever seen in my 19 years, the last 2 years, 21 and 22. And I was like, you have to stack your cash now. Like, do not take your foot off the pedal. And unfortunately, that didn't happen. I had people that would seem like they would take months off. And then the end of the year comes and they made an average wage. And I'm like, dude, winter's coming. I don't know if, and I was saying this middle of last year. I'm like, guys, I don't know if our market's going to soften next year. But I think it's going to be next year. And I actually was like, but I don't think it's going to be till the end of 2023. I was wrong. And so now, you've got, some recruiters that are struggling. I've actually had two people recently leave because they weren't making any money and they left for recruiting jobs that offered the big base salary and virtually zero commission. So, it is what it is. I don't fault those people for doing that, but yeah, it's you got to leave the ego at the door.
Definitely great advice. Well, Jay, this has been a phenomenal conversation, and it is
Always
definitely an
is.
important one, just because like how important like your health is for the longevity of your career or whatever you're doing. I'm hoping to be around for another 60 years, so
Yeah.
I need that foundational health right now. But before I let you go, Jay, is there anything else that you would want to share with the listeners?
Yeah. So I am not a health coach, but I am now passionate about helping people get healthy and giving people advice. I promise you, if you reach out to me for some advice, I am not going to charge you or ask you to spend any money. I just want to help people out because I know the difference that it's made in my personal life and my business life. And I think that if I can impart any information or anything that helps someone else change their life, then that's what it's all about. And I'd be happy to do that. So if anyone's listening or watching, if you want to change your health, you know, and actually it'll probably change your wealth too, because it definitely did for me. Um, Feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to give you any tips or advice that I have garnered over the last year working with my coach.
Awesome. Well, Jay, definitely thank you for coming on. And for the listeners, until next time, guys.